Redemptive entrepreneurship is really a way to connect the community with church, to be able to have better outreach, to be able to share our gospel message, in a better way and more effective way to youth and actually any generation for that matter. And so it's just a great way to connect with the community and to be able to do good in the world.
Now, the church is the place where we talk about the future. We talk about the future coming to Christ. We talk about all kinds of stuff. But do we talk about the future of vocation? If we're pursuing shalom, true identity, and true vocation, we've got to find a place to start talking about a future that will hit people whether they are ready or not.
Jesus and the disciples had a very large vision for the kingdom and what that would look like. In the four walls of the church, we've made that much smaller, and redemptive entrepreneurship is busting out the walls in the very best way, showing us how to use the bricks in different ways, showing us how to use the mortar, showing us how to use the ground that we planted it on, and most importantly, showing us how to use the people, because that's truly what the church is. And so it's making the best use of the people in the places where God is already at work.
Redemptive entrepreneurship has changed the way I think about church because of what I see people in the pews doing. I've been looking for businesses and creative projects where people are truly, in a sustainable way, addressing some of the toughest problems that we deal with. And I've been amazed to see that it's people in the pews who often don't talk about what they're doing, who are actually out there in our cities and doing amazing work.
And so the idea is that can the church not just create new business models to affect communities, but can the church also invest in transformative ways without that dividend on the other end that we're used to?
It has changed my view of church in that it's a new framework for church to think about what it is, what its identity is in our society today. What's the role of church? What's the purpose of church? What's the relevance of church? What can it be? What should it be? What can it reclaim to be?
That made us start to think about how do we actually welcome people and how do we anticipate people, not that we're stealing from other churches, but that have never experienced God's grace in the first place.
And I think if we can get back to that and utilize what we have in the congregation, I think the church would be much, much better. Because as an entrepreneur myself, I'm thinking, if I'm in the marketplace 6 days, you're in church 1 day a week, wouldn't it make more sense to utilize those 6 days in the marketplace versus just that 1 day on Sunday? So to me, it's crucial that the church embraces that model.
I mean, think about it. When Jesus followers are embodied and embedded in a neighborhood, they are forced to see both the opportunities and needs in that place. So we don't have to do needs assessments or opportunity assessments. When we live there, we're forced to see both the opportunities and needs.
So in the Changemaker initiative in our congregation, we've seen this really unleash a new way for people to put their faith into action, a new way to find a calling and make a difference. And through that, they use faith to do that work. And in the course of that grows their faith.
And that happens through our student relationships with their home churches. It happens through our relationships with congregations that we have some partnership with. And I think it's also happening with the way our curriculum at our university thinks about the idea of reaching underserved populations and equipping underserved populations.
And so I think one of the things that I'm very much looking forward to is taking this back to our faculty, taking it back to our students, and in a sense sharing it with them and asking them how might we as a seminary do a better job of equipping them in some of the things that we're already doing and learning from what they're doing, but how might it affect and influence our curriculum, and how might it affect and influence the extracurricular things that we as a seminary are trying to do.
When you answer the deep existential questions of who am I, what was I created for, what's my reason for being, with what people know that they're passionate for, you don't need a lot of budget to missionalize them. And I would argue that this is the core responsibility of us as congregational leaders, is to recognize the way in which God is speaking to our people, to help them to steward their vocational power to love their neighbors to life.
The way that I would want redemptive entrepreneurship to change our church at Embrace in Alameda, California is to be able to help the community and somehow, whether it's creating jobs or creating a service or product that's going to help others or both, and just the ability to bring more people together in our church as well as outside of our church to have a common cause and goal that we're going to strive to complete together.
So I've seen redemptive entrepreneurship change so many of my various circles, church, at work, in the community, my voluntary associations, just because when people can see that something is actually possible, that it's not merely an idea, but they can actually touch a pound of it or reach out and touch a successful enterprise that's redemptive, then that actually spurs their imagination.
So redemptive entrepreneurship gives a vehicle for that. It gives language for that, particularly from a vocational perspective. How do I live who I'm called to be if I'm not called to be a pastor in a church? And I think that's one place that redemptive entrepreneurship is changing how I view the church. Is how are we equipping people to actually do the work of the kingdom, the work of their calling is probably even a better way to say it.